We were living for 30 years in a very nice flat in Defence Colony. I was a sort of slightly honest architect, I think. So there was no way I could afford to live in South Delhi. When we first came here and we looked at this place, it was quite singular because of its location, really. Geographically, it sits on the border between Delhi and Haryana. You couldn't see across this forest area, but today you can see all the skyscrapers of Gurgaon. And much of Nagar's land was in any case taken by the government many years ago. There's a huge Air Force station on most of Nagar, and on the other side we have a Home Ministry's several institutions of the Home Ministry. So what remains on which the people of Nagar are settled is actually a fraction of the land of Nagar originally. So we found when we first came here and we looked at this place, it was quite singular. On the edge, rather interesting topography, very little land left over for development, it appeared. And surrounded or on either side by large, very green campuses of the government, which are not likely to get overbuilt. So whatever overbuilding is happening will happen in Nagar itself. So this is the singularity.
लोग जो है गाय भैंस ज़्यादा रखते थे और कोई काम नहीं था, जो जंगल पड़े थे तो जहाँ अच्छा जंगल देखा वहीं बस गए। जहाँ हम बैठे ये बनी थी, बनी थी और ये जोड़ था, जोड़ का। तो ये जो बाबा आया ये भी इसका भी इतिहास 500-550 साल पहले का। वो भी यहाँ जिंदा समाया था, समाधि ली थी इसमें, जो कि हमारे बुजुर्ग बताते हैं।
Apart from the fact that there's no proper road, then there was no water supply. Electric supply, we could get a temporary single-phase supply. No sewage, no way of dealing with our water. But more than that, the other problems were the fact that it was kind of lonely and out of the way. Nagar is also an example of the many, many unauthorized colonies of Delhi. In that sense, it's quite representative of the urbanization of Delhi. And it's not just Delhi. In fact, this is the way most cities grow. Like here, we have a village, an old village, which has evolved very slowly, organically over time, and which is the kind of heart of the settlement. Then you have planned extensions, which, in the 20th century, there's been a lot of a centralized plan, top down, is put down, and people then come and occupy those. And then there is the third type, which happens in most cities, which is the spontaneous development, which is outside the planned development, outside the sanction of law. And I think the reality of our country and our people is the complex realities exist in these places, which are cities created by people themselves. And this is happening all over the country. You can also see in Nagar the people who've come to settle here are from all over the country. So from that point of view, it is like a microcosm of the country. You could go out on the streets, on a holiday especially, and you still see real people. You know, where I used to live, Defence Colony, for 3 decades, when you went out in the market, most of the people you saw looked like each other, you know, and most of them looked like they were out from pages of a magazine, you know, and it's kind of, you know, after a while one begins to think about this. But here, when you go out in the street, you will still see people who are, who still have their own identity. You can tell that these people are from, you know, Central India, these people are from South India, these people are from Uttaranchal, you know, and things like that. You can actually tell the color, the richness, the diversity of what everybody talks about on the subcontinent is evident on the streets of Nagar. So this is, in a sense, therefore, it's representative in many ways of what's going on in the country. There was actually great hope. There was a real democratic process at work. The colony, so-called, had been divided into blocks. Each block would elect office bearers to look after a kind of municipality of their own. I mean, here were people who were trying to improve their own habitat in a very democratic and open manner. So this was for me a very heartening thing. Over the next 2-3 years, as we tried to get government officials to come in, government departments to come and provide these things, we found that there were factions within the community who were pushing for one thing against another. Government authorities complained that the village people are actually quarreling with each other. So it's very difficult to get cooperation amongst large numbers of people, especially if you have a more free system, somebody's not giving orders. We said, let us try and find the one thing. Is there one issue on which everybody will be agreeable?
पहले इस जोड़ में इतना साफ पानी था, ये बहुत ज़्यादा। जोड़ के पानी से लोग अपना भैंसों का, गाय का, वैसे भी, और तो कि शादी के चावल भी इस जोड़ से रखते थे। बहुत साफ पानी था, नीला पानी। कुआं तो गांव में एक ही था, सारे गांव में। अब आप गांव के चौगर्दी घूम लीजिए, ये जो फिरनी है गांव की, 50 साल पहले की फिरनी है। अब ये क्या, कल सड़क बनाई, आज नाल पानी की निकासी नहीं है, देखो पानी भरा पड़ा है वहाँ।
The village headman thought that the one issue on which people would all agree is essential is what he called it, pani ki nikasi. I read it as drainage. So drainage became the key issue. What we set up was a kind of 3-party exercise. One side the state, on the other side the people, and in between the technical experts. So GREHA was to play the role of the technical experts. First came here, I took the term unauthorized colony to mean what it does on the surface, which is that it is not authorized by law. Then the next step is that unauthorized means it's illegal. What is the genesis of not just this colony, but colonies like this? The fact is that India is urbanizing at a fairly rapid rate. After independence, there was a huge influx of migrants into Delhi, and the government made heroic efforts to look after the people and in fact settled lots of people in Delhi. But the migration didn't stop at that time. So Delhi then started to attract migrants from all over the country. The government was not able to do enough to cope with the numbers of people coming in. And although there was a large amount of planned development which happened in New Delhi, there was a huge amount of unplanned development which also went on. And I call this spontaneous development. It was what ordinary people coming into the city had to do in order to survive, in order to live. And so they go to the peripheries. And one bus service comes here. So on the strength of that, people come and start settling and building their houses.
तो एक नेबरहुड को लेके उसमें हम लोग अपना जो सैनिटेशन का काम है वो डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन तौर पे करें, सैनिटेशन, सॉलिड वेस्ट डिस्पोजल, और जो पानी जोहड़ में ले जाएं फिर से साफ पानी। तो हम लोग इसकी एक स्कीम तैयार करने
Water cycle management in an urban neighborhood, an experiment in environmental technology. The story of a pilot project for sewage and wastewater management undertaken for the Delhi government in the year 2017 and 18. The project uses a decentralized system of biodigesters for primary treatment of soil and wastewater installed below the roads. Secondary treatment is done by bioremediation in a reed bed and treated water recycled for use of the residents. The pilot project is the result of first-hand research conducted in Nagar, New Delhi between the years 1999 and 2017 by GREHA, a charitable society for research on human habitat. The research was led by M.N. Ashish Ganju, currently President of GREHA. Nagar is a 500 or 600 years old village on the outskirts of Delhi, bordering Gurgaon in Haryana. Since the 1980s, the village has been urbanizing, its population having doubled since 2000. Around this time, GREHA established itself in Nagar and started to work with the local residents to understand and guide the development of the built environment. The village was extending in a proto-urban pattern without adequate infrastructure or social amenities. The most urgent requirement, agreed by all, was drainage, which included sewerage, wastewater, and surface drainage. Water supply to the village and its extensions was inadequate, the traditional system of rainwater harvesting and shallow wells having been neglected and degraded. Spontaneous house building activity without environmental design or planning was rampant in all open spaces. To design an effective drainage system in these conditions, it was evident that the centralized municipal system, which originated in Europe in the 19th century and early 20th century, was not appropriate. To convey sewage in underground pipes to treatment plants several kilometers away, a large amount of water was required, and this was just not available at present or in the foreseeable future. Hence, a decentralized model was required, which could provide primary treatment contiguous to the household. This became feasible by using technology developed by the Defence Research and Development Organization of the Government of India for biodigestion of soil waste in discrete containers which could be minimized in size. The new technology was adapted to create a small-scale plumbing system which could be installed below the roads, even if they were very narrow, without entering private houses. The treated effluent from the biodigesters would undergo secondary treatment through bioremediation in a constructed wetland in the nearest suitable open space available. Technical support was provided by the Center for Science and Environment, who shared their expertise in decentralized wastewater management. Nagar is located in the southwestern edge of Delhi. Z Block is a dense urban neighborhood of Nagar, housing about 300 families. The neighborhood is surveyed and accurately modeled to inform the residents about the scheme.
और आपके पुष्पति हो गया है, यह वायलेंस प्रोग्रेस आपका यहाँ से ही होगा। तो उसके लिए आज आपको बुलाया गया सबको और आपको पूरा प्रोजेक्ट दिखा लोकल अथॉरिटी से पार्टनर करें, यहाँ के रहने वाले और बीच में टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट हैं जो को बता सके कि काम टेक्निकली ठीक कैसे होता है। तो नेट वैल्यू नहीं करता है। No, it is representation also. Wrong. I have been learned about it in station or in the consultant or and we don't know what is the time frame of the Sarkale project. If it is, you have been making research in 10 years. So next 10 years we'll be doing this project. So it's not no use to us. ट्रीटमेंट प्लान समस्या जैसे आपने कहा पानी आ जाता है, एक तो हमारा जो ब्लैक वाटर है, एक वाटर है, एक बरसात का वाटर। अभी आप ये कह रहे हैं कि आपकी पूरे सारे तरह के वाटरों की समस्या को सॉल्व करने की जिम्मेदारी तो आप पूरी हल कर देंगे।
The process of water cycle management starts with soil waste treated by biodigesters discharging to a grey water mains and secondary treatment by a reed bed before recycling. Biodigesters are installed under the roads. These are specially designed and fabricated using a patented system developed by the Defence Research and Development Organization of the Government of India. This technological innovation allows for a decentralized distribution of biodigesters with minimum water requirement for flushing. Septage is treated nearest source and treated effluent discharged to a grey water mains connected to a reed bed before recycling. The entire treatment system is accommodated under the narrow roads, maintaining a domestic scale. The roads are repaved to harvest rainwater along with the surface water. Concrete block paving completes the renewal of the streets. Joining Z block is the village Johar, once the water source for the settlement and now the dump collecting solid and liquid waste of the surrounding mohallas. The reed bed is located along the boundary of the Johar with the secondary school. Plantation in the reed bed can be seen from the school classrooms and makes a colorful boundary to the Johar.
It's not a full and final solution, but an intervention of like that, do you think it has been helpful for the residents?
Yeah, if you ask me, Nidhi, I would certainly say that, and I also believe that this is a very good initiative, and it had actually relieved us of many many serious difficulties. Like every week or so, we had to call this the tractor, which actually takes out the map. Now, as you might have known, we are around 100 to 150 residences over there. So in that manner, if say on an average every week there used to be some 4 or 5 such trucks which are actually coming into the lane and then taking out the mud. Now the point which we all have to note here is a truck coming into the lane effectively blocks the traffic for the period of say 1 hour or say 2 hours. Now if somebody on either side, if they have to move on, they will simply have to wait, whatever the emergency might be. So we have all been relieved of such difficulties here, such practical difficulties of this area, and as far as
And
the
also
system
it's
is
not
concerned, it is
hygienic,
also
no?
working fine. It's not,
It's
of
not
course,
hygienic to keep something out the
absolutely,
waste.
absolutely. As I mean, the other day, as Mr. Ganju had, I mean, as he had observed, people are living on their own shit. So, I mean, it is absolutely not hygienic. Now, I think it has transformed the area into say, more hygienic place, and a lot of difficulties have been removed.
Right.
Now we have to see that this maintenance has to be done.
I'm born and brought up here only, and now I am municipal councillor here. And basically, since long time, we were basically very closely watching Ganju ji for working this pond project and this the biodigestor system which have been developed and constructed in Z block. So because of that, because of both two things, in once around 14-15 years before, Ganju ji had drafted entire Nagar plan, like development of entries, development of exits. Entire blueprint was made by him, and he's the main consultant in this biodiversity concept also. So before, there was a big problem because I am also a resident of Z block also, so I am one of the beneficiary. So overflow water, regular जो tankers वगैरह को लेकर आने का सारा concepts वगैरह जो था, every month we used to call tankers, and they used to charge around 3,000-4,000 rupees from every household. So all that chaos have been finished, and main thing, because that setup have been constructed very near to pond. So jitna pani wahan se saaf ho raha, it is being dropped in the near the besides pond also. So it's benefiting two things, pond also, and nearby residents are being benefited. So if I talk about this biodiversity system which you have asked me, so it's like it's one of the thing, like कोई pollution नहीं हो रहा आसपास, कोई और drains overflow नहीं हो रहे, लोग garbage भी नहीं बाहर डल रहा, तो काफी benefits हो गए, पूरी locality को फायदा हो गया, करीब 200-250 लोग हैं, तो benefit तो है ही है. In this age, I always used to see Ganju ji running at this 60-70 years of age. तो उनको देखकर भी DM ऑफिस जाना है, SDM ऑफिस जाना है, चीफ सेक्रेटरी ऑफिस जाना है, ये प्लान करना है, इट हैज टू बी डन. एंड उनका पैशन था कि इस एज में भी, तो हम इस एज में उनको देखकर यार गंजू जी इतना करते हैं. एंड मेनली देयर आर 4 ponds in Nagar. So I always used to go to his house, sit with him for hours, know and learn many things. And I always used to share him my plans, what government is planning to do. And we always used to take his inputs. And I always used to like joining him to government offices. I have gone with him to Hoskas, that lake which have been developed. We spent there 4 hours. And at Nagar Pond, we have jointly visited not less than 50 times. DM office, SDM office. So a person like that, it was a privilege for us. He was staying in our nearby area in my ward. So we used to take a lot of benefit from him, and many things which we have done after consulting him in his guidance, and a lot of things we have learned from him. But the day I got to know from you, so I miss him from that very same day. I'm just feeling like यार गंजू जी से मेरे पास रेगुलर 4 दिन में एक फोन आता था, वेदपाल तुम क्या कर रहे हो, तुम घर पे आओ, तुम ऐसे काम करो. He used to see my WhatsApp that I'm doing something, and he always used to call me, ये ऐसे नहीं होगा, तुम्हें ऐसे करना पड़ेगा. And I tried to convince my government officers कि ऐसे करना है. It is more looking forward environmental issues, because he was more concerned about environmental issues also. तो जनरली गवर्नमेंट में तो कोई काम होगा तो ऐसे ही कर देते हैं, अरे चलो टाइम पास खत्म करके छुट्टी करो. तो वो एनवायरमेंट का सारा सोच के, तो मेरे तो बड़ा क्लोज, जैसे आपने तो साथ में उनके काम कर रहे हैं, पॉलिटिकल लोग तो मेरे को लगता नहीं कोई, पहले एमएलए साहब उनके टच में रहते थे, लेकिन मेरा बहुत अच्छा टाइम उनके साथ गुजरा है, उनसे जानना, सीखना, मालूम करना, और लगभग अच्छे हर उस पे उनकी एडवाइस लेना, एंड और उनका लड़ना, वेदपाल चलना है, टैक्सी से चलेंगे, गाड़ी नहीं है, बिल्कुल ऑन टैक्सी, ऑफिस के पास जाना है, वी यूज्ड टू शाउट किया डीएम बदमाश है, एसडीएम बदमाश है, पर अपन चलेंगे, वी बोथ विल ट्राई एंड कन्विंस हिम। तो एक बार हम लोग आयनगर का मॉडल प्रोजेक्ट लेकर गए, गंजू जी के का जो प्रोजेक्ट बना था मेरा आयनगर का पॉन्ड का, हमारे डीएम थे हमसे टाक, हम उनसे बोले खाली चाय पीने आना चाह रहे हैं, गंजू जी अपना वो मॉडल बोला मॉडल लेके चलूंगा, एंड वी वेंट टू हिज ऑफिस एंड वी सिट ऑन हिज टेबल कि देखिए 15 साल पहले बनाया मॉडल मैंने और आज तक इसको पूरा नहीं कर पाए। तो हमसे टाक जी ने हमें बहुत हेल्प की उसमें मॉडल को देखकर, मैं कि आपके ऑफिस में टेबल पे तब तक रहेगा जब तक आप इसमें कुछ हमें कर नहीं देते, और उन्होंने किया, हेल्प की, और उसका ग्रीनरी में हमें परमिशन वगैरह में हेल्प करी, तो काफी हेल्प की उन्होंने हमारी। फिर बाद में जब वो जा रहे थे तब उनसे मॉडल लेकर आए, उनसे गंजू सर और मैं दोनों गए थे कि सर इसको लेकर आ रहे हैं हम लोग, और ये हमारा ड्रीम प्रोजेक्ट है, एंड एक्चुअली इट्स अ ड्रीम प्रोजेक्ट ऑफ गंजू जी व्हिच आई एम ट्राइंग टू फुलफिल। क्योंकि मैं जब मैं कॉलेज में था तब मैंने देखा फर्स्ट टाइम चीफ मिनिस्टर को गंजू जी आयनगर लेकर आए, एंड आई वाज इन 3rd ईयर। तो मेरे घर के सामने मीटिंग थी, वो मैं मीटिंग के पीछे खड़ा हो गया, शांति से मैं खड़ा रहा, सुनता रहा। तो दैट टाइम आई वाज नॉट काउंसलर, आई फॉर दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी इलेक्शंस दैट टाइम, बट मेरे को था कि यार ये इज अ नाइस मैन हु हैज कम टू आयनगर, और ये कुछ करना चाह रहे हैं, अच्छा कुछ आयनगर को, इनके चीफ मिनिस्टर जानकार हैं तो कुछ आयनगर को दे देंगे ये। तो उन्होंने बड़े एफर्ट्स किए, लेकिन बहुत सारे लोकल लोग थे जिन्होंने काफी काम होने दिए, काफी काम नहीं होने दिए, लोकल प्रॉब्लम्स बहुत सारी होती है। एक बड़ा मास्टर रोड लेकर आ गए थे वो, जिसको थोड़ा सा मैंने ठीक कराया आके, तो मैं उनको देखता रहा, सीख, तो लेकिन जब मुझे लग पाया चांस आयनगर में चांस दे दिया मुझे, तो जैसे रोड का वाइंडिंग उनका ही प्लान था, पॉन्ड उनका ही प्लान था। अब जो बायोडाइवर्सिटी वाला कॉन्सेप्ट है, मैं यूडी से 1 करोड़ रुपीस लेकर आया हूँ अभी, 50 lakhs मैंने पॉन्ड में लगाए, 50 lakhs मैंने आयनगर में मेरा काम स्टार्ट हो गया, एंड इट्स ऑल ऑफ जस्ट बिकॉज आई यूज्ड टू वॉच एंड लर्न फ्रॉम हिम। तो ये ऐसा, वरना मैं 15 साल पहले हम सपने ड्रीम्स में नहीं सोचते थे कि गंदे पानी को साफ करके तालाब में डाल के तालाब को जीवित करेंगे। आई एम टेलिंग यू वेरी फ्रैंकली, हमें मालूम ही नहीं था कि ये पॉसिबल भी है और ये होगा भी और ऐसा होता है। तो कैसे मालूम पड़ा? गंजू वाज नियर अस, तो फिर हम पीछे पड़े के कि करना है। तो गंजू से बहुत फायदे थे, हम को याद करेंगे, मिस करेंगे, वैसे क्या करें। जो काम अभी हम कर रहे हैं, गंजू जी ने काफी उसमें, इट वाज अ ड्रीम, जस्ट आई टोल्ड यू, इट वाज अ ड्रीम ऑफ गंजू जी, एंड आई एम जस्ट डाइंग टू फुलफिल इट। मैंने